Hey, it's Abby Ferry with another edition of the Safety News. And today is Monday, April 20th, and I haven't been able to record on Sunday evenings like I used to. It used to fit so well to end the weekend and look ahead to the week with recording this podcast. And just lately with the work at home, stay at home thing that's going on. And I'm not going to talk about coronavirus much in today's podcast because I just don't want to on purpose. But first, I'll just open it up with talking about it a little bit because of how it has impacted how I approach the day, how I approach the week, how I'm looking at the past month and looking to the next month because potentially we might be doing this for a while longer, especially for those of us with kids that go to school, that their schools may not come back into session. So it's forcing me to definitely adapt on a daily basis. And that's something that it's a skill that's great for safety. And it's something that we probably all are honing on our work sites day to day, but it's definitely taken on a different form lately. There's a lot of adapting going on. So I'm thinking about adapting and about using new technology and thinking about how things will change, but also blending it with traditional methods. And so this week on Wednesday, I'm presenting a webinar and it's free. And the topic is balancing technology and established methods for training success. So that sounds nice, right? And I wanted to focus on technology because I know that's the kind of stuff that people want to hear a lot about. But also I have given a healthy amount of time or allotting a healthy amount of time on the webinar that's later this week to talk about some traditional types of things. So I'm getting a lot into the adult learning principles. And the cool thing with adult learning principles is that they're really, technology on the other side. So things like virtual reality and augmented reality and gamification and micro learning, that these are like the innovative approaches that I've kind of categorized for this webinar. And so when I think about those, I'm thinking about how they relate to adult learning principles, and really new technology and innovative new methods of delivering training really are well suited to the traditional things that we're aware of adult learning principles. So one of the principles being adults are voluntary learners. And so the adults, we want to learn on our own time, and we're more apt to want to be involved in a learning environment if it's something that we know we need right now. So looking at, even myself a month ago, maybe 2 months ago now, there was some online COVID-19 training, and I learned about it on Twitter. And on my own time, I took an hour and went through this online training module on coronavirus. And so that's something that maybe some of you are having to do in your workplace now, but it was something that I wanted to do on my own voluntary time because it was something that I knew would help me with my knowledge in the current landscape. So definitely using technology lends itself to that voluntary part of adult learning. And adults, obviously, we want to learn needed information, stuff that we need right now. We want to learn it quick. And so when learning relevant, timely types of information for what we need to do for our job, we just want it now. Like, we don't want the preamble to it. We don't want to know so much about the standards that go into it or the history, but we want to know what we need to know right now to do the job safely. Another adult learning principle is that us adults, we need our life experience to be acknowledged. So I think this is something that is a little bit lacking in using technology and innovative methods of training, because when you think of that technology, you're really taking away that classroom and collaborative experience. You're taking away, in some cases, a live, in-person, or even virtually led, instructor-led training, that you're putting the training in the workers, literally in their hands, with a device or a VR headset or a device like their cell phone that they use all the time, and then putting some kind of AR capability with that as well. So it doesn't really allow for a worker to say, hey, 5 years ago, I did a project like this, and this is what happened. So I do get a little bit worried about using too much technology because it doesn't allow for that transfer or sharing of institutional knowledge. At least a lot of the methods I'm familiar with right now, as far as innovative or tech-focused training, that it's more so giving something to the worker and not so much the worker giving back. With VR and AR, the worker can interact with an environment, but not so much communicate with it like you would with fellow classmates in a training. Adults also want to be treated with respect. So when I think about this, I think about how it's assumed a lot that younger workers, like under 40 and especially Generation Z, that they love technology, when what I've seen play out in real life is that sometimes the younger workers don't want to use so much technology in the workplace as far as it relates to their training and safety training, that they would rather be in a classroom environment and have that transfer of institutional knowledge. And then also you can't assume that all older workers, those over 40 or over 50, whatever you might consider old in your workplace on average, that not all older workers are tech averse. And so you can't make those assumptions, and we all know why we can't make assumptions, right? Adults also, they learn more when they participate. And so again, this is where there's a drawback on using tech and innovation, is that when you have like these immersive technological experiences, that it's a lot of, it's immersion, it's great. The worker is in their surroundings, they're going through scenarios, they're interacting with it, but it's really on a solo level. So I think more about things like gamification, or if you can gamify the AR or VR experience that the workers might be going through, then you can kind of get collaboration or competition, at least that way. Adults also need to know where they're going. So if you have like a gamified training experience, they can earn badges or go on quests, and so they can figure out where they're at and where they need to get. I'm seeing this a lot with my daughter and her education, that they earn points or coins or stars in these online scenarios, and she loves it. It keeps her hooked in to want to read the next story or to do better on the next comprehension quiz. So I think it can be really positive to have that gaming aspect, and that supports learning for those of all ages to know where they're heading. And one of the last adult learning principles that was refreshed for me as I went through this webinar preparation process is that new information, when given for the first time, so relating it back again to coronavirus, let's say, new information has to be reinforced and repeated. And so you can still have your classroom setting, or right now we have online classrooms, and we can still supplement that type of training with technology-focused solutions. And so I think where kind of the entry point for a lot of companies and organizations is going to be using technology, using the AR, the VR, the gamifying elements, or microbursts of training, micro-learning, that these innovative methods are going to be used to supplement classroom training, or I put classroom in air quotes because we're not really in physical classrooms so much anymore, or temporarily. So I think that technology can be used for that in-between time. So you have a class, or you have, in construction, you have a tailgate meeting or toolbox talk, and then a day goes by, or a week, or 2 weeks, or for a bigger class, like a 4-hour or an 8-hour refresher type class, months can go by, or a year can go by. And so you definitely want to see what types of technology you can use to keep reinforcing and repeating things in certain ways for the workers in between their larger or more all-encompassing training experiences come up again. So just trying to have multiple ways that a worker can listen to, interact, view, and otherwise participate in training, and just presenting information in different ways. Because something I always remind superintendents and foremen who are new to doing in the field toolbox talks is that they often feel like they're repeating themselves. And really, you're not repeating yourself, because nobody is hanging on every single word that you say every time you say it. So they may pick up, they kind of pick up and drop out of what you're saying here and there, but maybe over the course of hearing the same message 5 or 6 times, they'll start to pick up the entire message, the totality of your message that you've been trying to get across to them. So repetition is good, and I think that technology and innovative training methods can support that repetition by giving the worker repetition in different ways. Instead of just you always talking at them, that it could be a text message with a photo, or an email that has a fact sheet attached, or some other way of reinforcing what they just learned in the classroom, or the virtual classroom as it is now. So hopefully that can get your mind going a little bit by bringing in some of the traditional information of adult learning principles and how they definitely are mapping to using innovation and technology for delivering safety training. So hopefully that helps. Let me know what you think. Leave a review. Find me on social media. I'm usually at Safety Abby on all the different platforms. And let's continue the conversation, and make sure to check back next week. It'll either be Sunday night or at some point Monday, where I'll have a fresh message up. If you have an Alexa-based device, you can always enable the Safety News flash briefing skill. And whenever you ask your device for your news, I can start off your news for you. And then you can get into your other stuff like ESPN or Gary Vee, whatever it is you listen to. So thanks again for listening, and I'll have more news for you next week.